Hi, this is Erin from Morehouse Farm with today's knit tip, which is how to do the 3-needle bind off. Now this is a pretty neat bind off because it allows you to create seams as you're binding off so you don't have to do any sewing. And this is particularly useful for things like joining shoulders of sweaters and in today's project, which is the Aubon card wallet knit kit. So the first thing we need to do is line up our stitches evenly, and in this case we're going to put the first 26 stitches from the row on one needle and the second 26 stitches, or the other half of them, on another needle. So that's just a transfer process. You see my work in the round here. All we're going to do is slide those stitches over. That's pretty easy. Making sure that they are evenly distributed on these two needles. Not too much special going on here, but think about the orientation of your stitches. That's always important. You can either line them up as you're going or along the way as you're binding off. So again, we're going to have 26 stitches on each side, which will prepare us to bind them off 2 at a time, one from the front needle and one from the back. So once my work is parallel on 2 needles, I'm going to find the end with the working yarn, take my working needle, and I'm going to knit 1 stitch from the front together with 1 stitch from the back needle. Pull through both of those, drop that stitch off. Do the same with the second one, and then bind off as I normally would. Okay, so again, we're just knitting 1 from the front together with 1 from the back, dropping that off, and then passing the first one over the second one, as you would with any bind off. And so you continue this process the entire way through until you have them all bound off. So here we go for a couple more, and then I'll switch to Continental. And you can grab the stitch to pass it over as you're binding off with whichever needle seems to be more useful. I guess I find myself using the back one more often than the front one, but it really doesn't matter. And this is why it's handy to have a third needle, right? With double pointeds, that works really well because you have them in the set. But if you're working on a sweater, you may see our patterns call for a second, smaller needle, particularly circular, to help you with bind off, because that's easy to slide stitches on from either end. And that's the only reason you need that third needle, is just as a stitch holder that you can work from at the same time. So switching here to Continental works the same way. We're just going to grab 1 stitch from the front, 1 from the back, make sure we drop those off the needles, and continue our bind off. This is pretty exciting. It's one of those, oh, I can't wait to hurry up and be done, just because it's going to be the end of our project. Just make sure we don't grab any extra yarn along the way. Again, this is one of those things that practice really does make a difference for, because the tension at the bottom of your project should match the tension at the top of your project. And if you're really tight with binding off, that might not be the case. And then that'll help, or that'll create an issue with your dimensions when you're blocking. And just like the beginning end of a scarf can often be different than the end because of the difference in tension. So there's a couple of different bind offs that you might look at, so check out our tutorials for those. The double knitting for the super stretchy bind off is a good one to check out, where you end up almost double knitting as you're binding off. But again, practice makes such a difference. There's a lot of techniques that you can use to help with these different issues, but if you really want to get good at it, just spend some time on it. And I loved seeing the comments in the Knit Along group on Facebook, because they talked about, don't give up just because it doesn't look perfect. Do finish your project and enjoy it. Reminds us that we are humble, we are only people, we are only knitters, and that we can continue to work on the skills. I know I learn something new every day I pick up my needles, and I hope you have a similar journey as well. Okay, so here we go with the last 2 stitches, 1 from the front, 1 from the back. Drop those off the needle. And then for our last but not least, pull that one over. And then, as always, We can break our yarn, pull it through, and now we're ready to darn in the ends and block our project. Happy knitting from Morehouse Farm!